afternoon, everyone. My name is Juliette Connolly. I'm the Group Executive of Experience here at Stone & Chalk. We begin today by acknowledging the traditional custodians of this land, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. And of course, we extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people that are attending with us today. Look, I am so excited about our agenda today, and I know we've got people all over the country tuning in to watch this as well. But I'd like to start off by welcoming you to our Melbourne hub. We have 65 high-growth potential startups and scale-ups working out of this office, and that's just here in Melbourne. It's a thriving and buzzing community, and this is actually the fourth of our national events that we will be holding across Stone & Chalk this year, and this is the second one that we've done here in Melbourne. So we're really thrilled to have everyone join us, both those of us that are here and present and those that are on the call online. We are a growing community, not just here in Melbourne, but also across the nation. If you or anyone you know has got an emerging startup that would like to be part of this thriving community, please drop by and let us know, because we'd love to have you as part of the group. And rather than to give you the lengthy diatribe and try to explain exactly what Stone & Chalk is, it's a conversation I have a hard time explaining to my family, I thought we'd kick off by actually showing one of our new brand videos that does a much better and far more succinct version of explaining who Stone & Chalk is and what we stand for than I would be able to.
It all starts with a big idea, where relentless bravery and curiosity reside. Ideas that are driving real change, purpose-driven growth, and positive impact. Where brilliant minds and passionate entrepreneurialism converge, and deep human connections form. At Stone & Chalk, we are founder first, sustainable, not-for-profit, and Australia-wide. With the visionaries, the creators, the brave and the bold, our startups, scale-ups and corporates don't just make moves in the industry. Together, we're putting Australian emerging tech innovation on the map. To succeed, real change makers need more than just guidance and networks. They need to be supported every step of their journey by a curated community of founders, mentors, investors, corporates, governments, and collaborators. Together, we're redefining how innovation should be supported in order to thrive. It all starts with your big idea. Join the next gen of changemakers and make your mark with the largest innovation community in Australia. At Stone & Chalk, together we ideate, innovate, impact.
Great. So during tonight's event, we're going to actually dive into the social impact of technology and how we disrupt with both purpose and real heart. And I'm really interested and engaged in this because we look at the changes that have been wrought in our society, especially here in Melbourne in the last couple of years that we've lived through with COVID, that we've really understood how important it is to be really purpose-driven and the opportunities that are available to us in actually building out a society that is a lot more meaningful to each and every one of us. So I want to just lean into a few statistics for a few minutes. According to Pro Bono News, there are 1,600 more startups, Australian startups, that raised funds between 2015 and 2020. Of that, 20% were classified as impact startups, which meant that the revenue that they generated was inherently linked back to creating measurable positive social or environmental impact. And we, even in our own Stone & Chalk tagline, we talk about the importance of impact and what that means. It's more than just to customers. It's to entire communities and it's to our society as a whole. So that's why we're here doing this as a showcase today, to really focus in on the meaningful and important work that's being done by our founders across this. I also want to note that today is part of the Spark Festival. Excuse me, Australia's Festival for Innovation, Tech and Ideas. Now, Spark is also a not-for-profit, and it's a festival whose mission is to drive prosperity for all Australians via the growth of thriving new economy businesses. We've actually been collaborating with the Spark Festival for a long time, and actually since 2015, and we're really proud that this event is part of it again today. We're not going to do your standard Q&A session today, because this is not about Stone & Chalk. This is actually about focusing in on the founders that are doing this really impactful and meaningful work. So we've asked them to do a TED Talk style So 5 minutes from each of them where we actually get to hear what they're doing and why it is that they have brought their businesses to life to make that level of social impact. We've got 3 of our founders joining us here in Melbourne, and we also have founders from across the country dialing in for us from both Adelaide and Sydney. So let me take a moment and actually introduce them. So here in Melbourne, we have the front row, only ones brave enough to get there. Arjun Agarwal from Impact Investments, Molly Fooley from Fooley, and Sonia Markovich from Evitat. Joining us from one of my favorite cities, Adelaide, is Summer Protosius from Kindship, and Mary Kelly from Reusably. I'll give you a hint, she's also from somewhere else. And last but not least, joining us from Sydney Hub is Nigel Bradshaw. With our friends in Adelaide. Is that coming through okay? Sorry. All right, good. How's that? We'll do it this way. It's the first time ever I haven't been able to be heard in the back. Introduce our very first speaker. Summer Petrosius is co-founder and CEO of Kindship. And as I said, she's dialing in from Adelaide. She's a passionate social entrepreneur, qualified speech pathologist, and social media influencer with over 10 years experience in the health and disability sector. Summer is motivated by community-led social change, peer support, and advocacy opportunities as well-being. Thanks, Summer. We're really looking forward to hearing from you.
I'll never forget the moment that the idea behind Kindship bubbled into my brain. It was a Tuesday and I was standing at the gate of the school where I worked as a speech pathologist, waiting for a student who was running late. It was raining hard and I was feeling impatient. Eventually, Elijah arrived and I helped him out of the car, hurrying for the cover of the classroom. Just before we ducked inside, I looked back to where his mother was still parked in the school driveway. What I saw stopped me in my tracks. She was howling, crying so hard I could see her through the rain and the window. Later, I learned that it had been a tough morning. Elijah was autistic and had become dysregulated. In the throes of a meltdown, which is much different to a tantrum, Elijah had injured himself, his mother, and his baby brother. Of course, I was empathetic to the situation and did my best to suggest helpful strategies that they could use next time it happened. But the truth is, I didn't understand her grief, worry, and pain. I couldn't because I don't have a child with a disability. That got me thinking, what if Elijah's mum could talk to somebody who did? Kindship is Australia's #1 social networking app for parents raising children with disabilities, delays, and neurodiversity. Every week, we help thousands of mums and dads find practical and emotional support from their peers, people who just get it. We are, to put it very simply, in the business of human connection, and specifically connection to peer support. It's important that I mention this because it took me longer than you would probably expect to figure out. The currency of a social enterprise or any heart-driven business, I believe, is a clear purpose. You need to know what you do and why you do it, because otherwise your industry, stakeholders, and competitors will try and decide for you. For example, in the early days of Kindship, we had lots of external pressure to go down the not-for-profit route. I think this reflects an outdated view that profit and purpose can't coexist, when in fact, so much of today's social change is being driven by thriving businesses. I'm sure the founders you hear from next will one day be amongst their number. In the wise words of one of our mentors, if you build a product or service that solves a real problem and solves it well, people will pay for it because they want it to exist. Which prompts the question, how do you know if you're solving the problem that sits behind the purpose you've just defined? To answer that, you need to go back to your theory of change, which should live on your desk, screensaver, and always at the back of your mind. Understanding what and how your actions today will affect change tomorrow is critical to defining and measuring your impact. It also gives you a great playbook for co-design conversations. If there is one thing I can stress today, it is not to underestimate the value of talking to people that live and breathe the challenge and change you want to see in the world. So much of Kindship's success can be credited to the storytelling, insight, and constructive criticism from our parent community. We've also got better at creating space for their input. Co-design in our case has evolved from prescribed problem interviews that left a little room for out-of-the-box thinking to almost free-for-all vision sessions. Maybe this will sound familiar to some of you. In the beginning, I spent 8 months sat on the floor in our living room talking to hundreds of families living with disabilities, and I learned a really a lot about the problem I thought we needed to solve and not the one that mattered most to them. Then we welcomed our first founding group of parents who very generously responded to all of our "do you prefer A, B, or C" questions, but could probably have come up with a much better D or Z if we had let them. It's a comfortable and potentially deadly space to get stuck. I remember hearing Jodie Fox, the founder of Shoes of Prey, talk about this in a podcast. She said that they were so focused on asking their customers what their dream shoe looked like, they never stopped to ask what footwear already lived in their closet. If they had, they would have learned that there were a lot of $30 ballet flats and $50 sneakers and no room in their bank account or day-to-day life for a pair of custom-made $200 stiletto heels. So while they had a lot of would-be customers, their interest never turned into sales. These days, our co-design sessions look and sound like brainstorming sessions that start with suggestions like, could we change this, or what if we had that? And then us workshopping a clickable version that our parents break a couple of times before we get it right. Sure, it's slower, but the results absolutely speak for themselves. The product experience is better, and even more importantly, our community feel like they have a voice in our vision and that their voice is heard. If you would like to find out more about Kindship, our impact and opportunities to get involved, including our current equity crowdfunding campaign, head to our website at www.kindship.com.au. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Summer. It's so inspirational to hear you speak like that and the passion that you've gone through, including admitting the mistakes that you made on that journey. I think that's one of the gifts that founders give each other on a daily basis, in that we can actually say, this is where we messed up. So thank you. Time for our second speaker here in Melbourne. So I'm welcoming up Sonia Markovich, CEO and co-founder of Evitat. Sonia has more than 20 years experience in brand, technology, digital strategy, design thinking, and experience design. For over a decade, she's helped companies, corporates, government agencies, and startups to create engaging experiences that compassionately connect us into all of our diverse world by building meaningful relationships and purpose. Sonia, welcome up.
Thank you. Thank you. Today, we have 8 million existing homes, and we call them largely glorified tents. You probably know that phrase. And that's for a good reason. Unfortunately, Australian homes are the worst compared to other developing nations when it comes to energy efficiency and comfort. So I ask you today, how many of you felt uncomfortable this winter in their homes, or even the pressure of rising energy costs? So you are not alone. There are millions of Australians who feel exactly the same, and us included. So most of Australian homes are not actually meeting even the basic standards, providing a safe place for people to thrive, or a healthy environment, and they are definitely not built for climate resilience. They contribute also up to 25% of our annual national carbon emissions, which is quite devastating. And in terms of climate resilience, we see that on an everyday basis, really going through media with floods, and in the last couple of years with all kinds of climate events hitting the nation. Homes are an essential need, and if they fail, they directly contribute to health issues caused by heat and cold stresses. Mold is causing allergies, and other long-term respiratory issues. So climate change is even accelerating also financial stresses, rising costs, and falling asset values. It pushes people even into energy poverty and causes stress amongst family to meet ends. So Evitat is on a mission really to empower renovator to make healthy, low energy and climate resilient renovation choices. We have a big vision. We want to support 1 million sustainable home renovations by 2030 globally. So to do this, we are building an ecosystem for sustainable home improvements for all stakeholders included, and unlocking a new market segment based on trust and transparency. And we need this urgently in the built environment really to make an impact and change. At the core of our solution sits the Evitat logbook. It allows renovators to track and measure their conscious choices and turn them in future into property value. Think of your service book for cars, but this is for your homes. And we really want to encourage every single decision making, which is around sustainable choices, low energy, and healthy decisions. It will create Australia's first repository for sustainable home improvements and invites renovator actively to become a part and a valuable part of the change solution. So how do we match and how do we track our own impact? We use a 6 core category impact metrics. These are health, comfort, water and energy efficiency, affordability, environmental and social impact, and carbon. And in total, we are providing a holistic view on housing as a core essential need for people and community to thrive in balance with our social and environmental boundaries. So far, we have soft launched our community application and hosting a free online events for renovator to hear about the low carbon and energy efficient materials and product solutions. Our platform is free to use and fosters environmental and sustainable renovation and efficiency choices. So if you are thinking about renovating, think about your role you can play as in terms of a solution to our global challenges. And if you want to learn more about sustainable home improvements, I invite you to join our community. Go to evitat.com.au and sign up. It's completely for free, and I would love to welcome you there. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sonia. This resonates with me so much, not only as a homeowner, but also as a Canadian. I was horrified. I've never been so cold in my life as I am living in my house in Melbourne. And that's coming from a girl that's lived through minus 35-degree winters in Toronto. All right, on to our next speaker. This time we're off to Sydney. So Nigel Bradshaw is also a founder in our community, joining us from Sydney. He's got a bit of an exciting announcement to make tonight, so I'll let him get all the credit and kudos on that one. Nigel's been driven by passion for justice, fairness, and equality in society. Seeks out opportunities to influence and impact the world to co-create a better future, including the mobilization of capital towards projects and transactions which will benefit society and catalyze the transition to a net zero carbon and then carbon positive global economy. Off you go.
Thanks so much, and just great to be joining you. Thanks for having. And I'm a relatively new founder, and you could argue a reluctant founder of sorts, and more on that in a moment. But we are very early stage. What I can tell you tonight that the name of our company right now is Teal Home, which is going to be more of a corporate thing. We're going to rebrand. We're working through that. We're so early stage. So we incorporated just 3 months ago, back in July. But picking up on some of Sonia's themes, we're working in a little bit of a similar space, but coming from a different angle. We would call ourselves a climate fintech. And this is how we can use the financial system to help drive the transition to net zero as quickly as possible. And the reason why I've come to this and the reason why I think I'd call myself a bit of a reluctant founder is that I always thought I would go more into the not-for-profit sector or into picking up on what someone was talking about or into social. But then I found myself in a situation at 17 where both my parents were in hospital. And so thankfully was only temporarily homeless, but then through the kindness of others was able to secure housing. But fairness, equality, justice and security of home has always been a huge thing for me. And that's home not just in our house, but also home as in our planet Earth. And of course I had to get a job in order to support myself. And so I went through and worked, and then I picked up some university study along the way. And as I was doing that, working and studying, my intent was to then go into a large NGO and have a real impact in the world. But I was told essentially, you can come in at the ground level and you can do this and that and would be helpful, but you can also go and do corporate for 15 years and then come back and really do something strategic. And so I thought I'll give that a try. And so I ended up working for ING, which is a large Dutch financial company. And little did I know when I joined in January 2007 that the global financial crisis was about to hit, or that I would be working in the middle of the area that's most impacted by that, which is the group treasury function. But an incredible way to learn about global markets, about reinforce my study in economics and finance, and was really working to ensure that we were able to continue funding all of those hundreds of thousands of Australians, but also globally millions of people with their housing loans. And as we worked through, and ING was a great innovator and a great pioneer in many ways in the industry, and I learned so much from them. And we started looking as an early leader into sustainable finance and then the intersection of how finance and incentives in finance work within the community and for outcomes. And so I spent some time looking at the finance for homes through mortgages and wondering over the years, at least conceptually initially, what if we were able to link the price of a mortgage or the price of money, which is reflected in the interest rate, to the energy performance of the underlying house? Would those financial incentives, as well as now, of course, suffering from rising energy prices and now rising interest rates, everyone's looking to save money. Would that difference be that if the banks were going to provide a discount based on the energy rating of the home, would that be the tipping point that would unlock the real acceleration of the transition for improving the performance of these homes? And as Sonia touched on, they're not that great, and in Australia especially. And so what we're doing right now is taking the opportunity afforded to us by our skill set and then the intersection of that with our network and our experience, as well as what we see as the opportunity and the timeliness to really make a difference in the ecosystem now. And so having worked for 15 years in the banks and being able to see some change and some incremental change, there are some green mortgages, for example, in the market. I decided 3 months ago to test whether there was an opportunity for us as a startup, as a climate fintech outside of the banking system, but partnering with the banking system to help them with their customers to accelerate that transition. So we're busy building our MVP right now with our first lender, and then we'll have more to announce in the coming months and years, hopefully. So watch this space. But thanks again for having me.
Thanks so very much, Nigel. Really excited to hear that we're starting to see this coalition of all of these elements, whether it's climate, whether it's finance, whether it's all of these things are coming together in real synergy to make that impact across our country. So wonderful to see, exciting to hear where it goes. So congratulations. All right, back to Melbourne. Our next speaker is here, Molly Foley, CEO of Foley. She was previously a captain of a major Australian airline, also one of the youngest female Australian airline captains. She flew over floods, bushfires, storms, and heat waves, noticing that they were becoming more intense and frequent. Uniting the learnings from a bird's-eye view, flying over the world, and a fish-eye view of the oceans, Molly dived into her entrepreneurial journey. With an MBA from RMIT University, she has combined all of her experiences and built a team, and so the business was born. Come on, Molly, welcome up.
Thank you, everyone. I do get asked a lot about the name. So Foley is also my last name, and our startup is Full Electric. I thought It's very simple for everyone to know who we are. Who in the room has had a go at one of those e-bikes or e-scooters, or even own one or two? If you're like me, how amazing is that feeling of clean, cool transportation, and also you don't have to find a parking, right? Considering that the City of Melbourne is introducing all these changes to the roads. What we found out through our startup is the cells that are in your Tesla, the lithium-ion cells, are the same ones in your e-bikes or your scooters. However, the way they've been put in a Tesla, they last for 10 years and they'll charge in an hour. But in your e-bike and your scooter, they're made to last 2 years, and 95% of those cells end up in the landfill. Why, you may ask, is the way they've been designed as a consumer product. The scooters and e-bikes have a charger that doesn't look after the battery cells. So what we've done is, imagine if you could charge your e-bike like you charge your Tesla. So we're bringing that same technology into your mobility products. And that's what we do at Fully. Now, we have dared to dream bigger than this, thinking with batteries, how do we design a full circular economy so that those little cells are looked after throughout their whole life? And what we've done is we've trialled out, and it will be rolling out in Melbourne soon, your smart battery in a swap station. Now, this is not a new concept. It is happening around the world, in Taiwan, in Europe, where portable battery is a norm. But we don't see that here in Melbourne. And that's the vision that drives us every day. What we want to see is your swap station centrally located, so customers like Jane and her group of friends who are uni students, she's passionate about the climate, and her conscience says she wants an electric vehicle, but her bank balance says no. So her and her group of friends that we have been working with, they said, if we could just rent the battery, one, that will lower the cost of the EV adoption. We don't have to charge the battery because it's in the swap station. So we can keep, after uni, go to our Uber deliveries and keep going by swapping the batteries as you go throughout the city of Melbourne. You already see that with the Zumo bikes. And imagine if you had a battery extender at the back that just kept you going. That would make the party on the Saturday worth every dollar. So this is our vision and our purpose, and what we have seen with technology that's happening around the world to bring it to Melbourne and make the most livable city that much nicer. So in terms of where we're at the moment, on Saturday we fly over to San Francisco for a Verge conference, which is one of the biggest climate tech conference. And we have been supported so much by all the members of Stone and Chalk, and we cannot thank them enough. One thing I will want to leave you with. The 5 minutes I've been speaking to you, there has been 50,000 of those cells that has gone into the landfill. And this is our purpose, our heart, and our vision. They don't need to end up in the landfill and contaminate the ground and the water we drink. There is a bigger purpose for this, and together we can solve this problem. And that's why our wholehearted approach is here with everyone in the room making an impact. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Molly. I love you're bringing together both the environmental care that you're doing, plus the way we are now considering to use energy. And I love that you're also harnessing the fact that we're getting a sharing economy, right? That we are much more likely to be collaborative and to work together as a society to solve some of these big problems. So even if it's as simple as I'm going to share that battery and charge it that way. So wonderful. Lovely to see where this is going. All right, moving on. We're back to Adelaide. Our fifth speaker, she is the founder of Reusably. She is also, however, a Stone and Chalk employee, and I have the pleasure and privilege of having Mary on my team as well. A little bit about her. She's an innovation ecosystem leader, startup founder. She spent the last few years working to build the South Australian startup ecosystem, taking all of our startups from ideation to scaling all the way through the growth stages, through to projects with small and medium enterprises, governments, and corporates. She has a passion for sustainability and fostering innovation across various sectors. Her startup, Reusably, addresses single-use plastic waste through a tech-based circular economy solution. Mary, looking forward to hearing from you.
Thanks so much for having me, everyone. Just want to start by saying I am so inspired by everyone that we've heard from tonight. And that is something that I love about my work that I do with Stone and Chalk is I get to be surrounded every single day by people solving some of the world's most pressing problems and learning from them. And that helps me build my own startup and drive my own mission. And Summer absolutely hit the nail on the head around sustainability is not something that kind of sits in its own little bucket, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to sacrifice profit or success to be doing something good. And I love that we're starting to shift away from that notion. So Reusably's mission is to completely eliminate single-use, and we do that through a tech solution that helps facilitate swap systems of reusable containers. Molly, we should catch up and have a chat after this as well. So what that looks like for a user is you can walk into a cafe, order your takeaway coffee, they serve it to you in one of our reusable containers. So you never have to remember to bring it with you, never have to remember to clean it because it's been sitting in your car for a week. You can go away, drink it, take your food away, and then drop it off at any participating location when you're done. So we're the tech that sits in the background and does the redistribution. We provide users with data on their carbon footprint. Cafes can see their financial savings against what they'd normally spend on disposables. We can give councils and communities data on their waste diversion and what they're saving. And this came about because I heard on the radio one day, I was at university at the time, that they wanted to ban reusable cups. And I just sat there and went, we can't let that happen. There is no way that we can take that step back for sustainability and going green. So I thought, what can I do to change that? And at the time, I had just started exploring the notion of circular economy in my studies. And I just couldn't believe that how much circular economy made sense. It makes sense economically and environmentally and socially. And to me, that's really what sustainability means, is encompassing all of those three elements. So when we started building Reusably, although I'm wearing green today, we specifically chose not to brand ourselves green because we didn't want to be put in that bucket of green and eco startups. We wanted to be seen, we're here for the real deal. We want to build a company that is just like all of the other tech companies that everyone wants to use, that just happens to be doing something good. We wanted to be somewhere that created jobs, and that when students finish university, they didn't feel like they had to sacrifice their passion and their values for a career or a high-paying job. Still a little away from that kind of employing lots of people, but that's really the vision that we have for the company, is how can we use technology to support a shift away from single-use plastics. And the cool thing about the tech is we can also use it for any sort of supply chain system, crates, pallets, kegs, anything that needs tracking. And there's quite a big market out there. Lots of waste happens behind the scenes in the supply chain space. So the Reusably tech is also something that we built to empower communities. We launched our pilot earlier this year on Kangaroo Island, which was really exciting for us, but we didn't want to be a company that just came in and said, here's this cool tech, here's an app, go have fun. We worked with the local communities, the Business Hub, the Brand Alliance Group, all of the local businesses, even the schools. And we got some kids working on projects for us, and they went and interviewed all the cafes and did some surveys and built our logo and did a presentation at a business week. And they came to us afterwards and said, this was so cool for them to work on, because all their assignments that they normally do, they go home and it doesn't mean anything, doesn't go anywhere. But this was something that they could work on and feel like they were having real impact in their community. They could see the change that it was creating. They could tell their friends like, hey, how we did this, and you can go to the cafe and you can see it, and we can actually track how much waste we're saving together. It was something that they could own and feel like they were contributing to, and we were just supporting them with a platform that allowed them to measure it, essentially. So when we're trying to make decisions, we think both from a sustainability lens. Every single decision that we make, we're thinking about what's the environmental impact of this, what's the social impact of this, where can we be more efficient. But at the same time, we're thinking about what's going to make us grow, what's going to make economic sense. We don't want to sacrifice our growth as a company. It's trying to find the balance between those two, which is sometimes really tricky, but because it underpins everything that we do, I think we've been really successful in driving our mission and staying true to our mission. So hopefully we see ourselves applying the tech in so many other ways in the future. But for now, we're trialing with reusable cups and bowls, and we're able to track that. If you go on our website, you can actually see the number of cups that have been saved from landfill. So we're really excited where we can take this in the future. And yeah, that's from me.
Thanks so much, Mary. I want to just say that Mary's touched on the importance of education and how we bring young people into the entrepreneurial experience. We're really looking around at how we can extend our abilities in that, breaking through to make entrepreneurialism acceptable, not just to kids as a pathway that they know it's something that they could use, but as importantly, to their parents. So when that 15 or 16-year-old says, I have an idea, mom and dad don't go, well, you have to be a doctor, lawyer, Indian chief. That there is that opportunity to say you can be an entrepreneur. And Mary, I think, is a wonderful example of a young person doing extraordinary good in the world while building a business. So wonderful. Thanks so much, Mary. We'll come back with questions in a minute. So last but not least, we're coming back here to Melbourne. So our final speaker is Arjun Agarwal, co-founder and CEO of INAM Impact Investments. So Arj is a financial investment executor, a solution-driven practitioner and power networker. He gets things done. He loves finding the root cause of a problem and the intersection of how the solution can challenge the status quo. He's helped businesses build in-house solutions for various operational inefficiencies right from the ground up. And he's very passionate about using his financial and investment knowledge to propagate positive impact throughout investing. So Arj, come on up. Really looking forward to hearing from you.
Well, this room filled up much more than it was earlier. Good evening. My name is Arjun Agarwal. I'm the co-founder and CEO of INAM. And we are reinventing investing to change the world, one curated impact portfolio at a time. We help young people that don't know how and where to invest their money to do so with an impact. And we do this by embedding investment literacy throughout the process so you can learn by doing. This allows us to create a unique investor profile for each user, which in turn allows us to curate a custom portfolio of 10 to 15 listed impact stocks from every single stock market on the planet just for you. You can also track your impact dollar for dollar. And at INAM, we're closing the loop on impact with something we like to call the INAM Impact Loop. This is how we reinvest a portion of our profits back into the impact ecosystem to support women of color, people of color, and young people from disadvantaged backgrounds with access to capital that they would otherwise not have to build the businesses of the future. And we do this by investing in impactful technology day in and day out. Now, why is all of this important? Let's start with a little story. My father was one of South Africa's leading entrepreneurs in the pharmaceutical industry. While he was great at business, unfortunately, he wasn't as good at managing his own personal money. People took advantage of this. He ended up making some poor investments that cost him his entire life savings, in the millions. 5 years later, he lost his life. Not knowing how or where to invest money cost us everything. And as a young person who now had to take care of his mother, I found myself in the same position. I didn't know how or where to invest my money. All I knew was that I could not let any other family go through this ever again. And this is when I began my quest to understand money and change the world. 3 continents, $500 million in deal flow, $30 million in investments, and a career spanning investment banking, consulting, and impact-focused work has taught me the following. Money has been made unnecessarily complex. At its core, it is as simple as money goes in, money goes out. But the financial services industry, the system that manages money, has done a great job of introducing veils and barriers to make the access to and understanding of money difficult for ordinary people. Number 2, it's easier to think of money as a tool to get things done. You can use a hammer to put things together, or you can use it to completely break things apart. How you choose to use it is your decision entirely. Similarly, money can be used to bring about positive outcomes for everyone, or it can be used to continue propagating the systemic cycle of bringing about positive outcomes to a few people at the cost of many. Contrary to popular belief, the choice remains with us. And number 3, we can in fact redirect the global flow of capital and create a force for good. The way we do that is called impact investing. Impact investing means investing, or money going in, to places that positively impact people, planet, and profit. Where does the money go out? In places that need it the most. To put it simply, investors invest in businesses with paying customers. Businesses with customers usually tend to succeed and provide a return on investment. Paying customers make investors believe businesses are thriving, and so they continue investing. Now, as customers in this room, we've all just been paying without paying much attention to where the money goes in and where it goes out. We're all part of the problem that we didn't know existed. We're unconsciously choosing where the money goes in and exactly where it's going to go out. As you can see, this cycle needs to be re-engineered. And here's where the power of numbers come into play. The Australian population is transitioning from a majority being a mature age to people under the age of 34. After having spoken to over 500 such young people, 93% of whom said that the impact their money made mattered to them, we now know people want to drive change, young people now drive change, and young people now have the capital to drive change. So, if we as a collective started becoming investors and customers of businesses that aligned with our goals for people, planet, and profit, in other words, businesses doing good things, we essentially allow these businesses to start attracting capital from every stage of the business journey. In other words, redirecting the global flow of capital and creating a force for good. Change and changing the world isn't hard. It's getting people to believe they can do it, which is. Change is a choice, and the decision to make that choice is ours. We get to make that choice every single day. So make the right one. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Arj. This really excites me for so many reasons, because while I'm clearly not in the under 34-year-old group anymore, it is something that I know I personally and most of my friends have been looking for a very long time, is how do we actually make our money work not only for ourselves and our long-term best interests, but more importantly for the collective good, and how do we that level of impact. And that's actually something historically we used to do when you think about barter systems, when you think about how we came up as a society creating good inside communities. So I think it's really wonderful. So look, that's it from our speakers for now. I've got a few to start. But can we start with a round of applause for all of our speakers? All right. We'll have some chairs out here for our Melbourne folks. Sorry, you have to get out of the front row and face them. And look, I'm just reflecting on one thing. And this was actually the question I was going to ask last. I think I'm going to ask it first. I was really interested to read in the ABC this weekend that there is a significant portion of Australia that has underserviced or serviced by connectivity in the internet. What does it mean, and how can we as a country start to move to bring underrepresented groups, whether it's those underserviced by technology and communication, but also those that aren't aware of the power of what you guys are doing to create impact. How can we bring the rest of Australia on that journey?
So I think I'm going to start by sharing a statistic because I've learned to back my facts that I throw out in public with numbers, otherwise I'm not relevant. So if you look at VC investments last year, it was about $10 billion in Australia. Less than 0.03% went to women of color. Just less than 0.03%. Now, that doesn't even begin to touch, yes, cis-het brown man talking, I have no right to say this, but that doesn't even begin to reflect on the other intersectionalities that exist. If we flip that onto First Nations businesses that need access to capital to ensure access to infrastructure such as the internet, we're not even scratching the surface. There are businesses that exist that are doing these things, that are making access possible, but that simply don't get funded through traditional measures of finance because they're not able to get that far. So it's very important to not only think about how to do it, but to change the entire methodology of which businesses are getting funded. Because it's very hard for a person who's not from a particular community to go in and say, I've got something I can sell to you, because that's not going to align with that community, which is why the Impact Loop ensures that these underrepresented founders are funded to build the businesses of the future before they're asked questions about, okay, cool, what's your CAC, what's your revenue, what's your customer acquisition model? They never got that far. We can't have the same measurement criteria for a cohort of people that have never had the opportunity to get there. Yeah, sorry, that's my 2 cents.
Anyone else want to comment? Anyone on the Zoom want to jump in? Nigel, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, I think mine's a slightly different take. One, I welcome the inclusion in the budget next Tuesday by the federal government, the investment and expansion in the NBN. And so that would definitely help. But also one of the benefits in the way that we're approaching our problem is to connect in via the existing banking relationships that those institutions have with their customers that are already serviced through a combination of in-person, online, email, phone call, and all of that infrastructure already exists. And so our tech will augment that capability with solutions that can be delivered via both analog and digital channels into customers, with the intent that every customer can become an impact investor by taking up this offer.
It's a good call out, especially the government investment in underserviced communities. We've seen this in the developing world, where those of us in first world countries have had to go through the generations of technology, going from plain old telephone systems all the way through to our mobile capability. In the developing world, they've actually been able to leapfrog that and go straight to 5G mobile technology. And in some ways, some of the things I've seen in countries like Zimbabwe, which, albeit that they're economically completely unsound, are starting to rebuild those principles altogether. All right, different question. I'm going to start with Summer, if you don't mind. What advice do you have for someone that is considering starting their journey on social impact? I found your story about seeing that woman crying to be so personally impactful. How do you actually then tell someone that's thinking about making social impact how to do that as a founder?
That's a great question. I think if I was to go back to that point, it would just be to have more conversations. I think the more that you are aware of the challenges and the problem that you are ambitious to solve, the better foot you get off on from the start. I think one of the big things that we've learned through Kindship is just the power of having the trust and support of the community that we're really looking to work with, and that's just been instrumental in terms of our success to date. And the other thing I think is just to back yourself. I think it's very easy for people to settle into a salary paying 9-to-5 job and have opinions, and it takes a lot of guts to actually step out and want to do something that makes a difference in the world. So if you have that drive, then I would say surround yourself with people who are going to celebrate that and support it.
Yeah, that's a great call out. Any questions from anyone in the room? I can do this all day otherwise. You do?
This one's for Summer, and just thanks for sharing. Just interested, I found out about the tonight by your raising a product for the next. We work in that space, are really interested in what you've developed to date, but could you share what's next on your roadmap for us?
Sure, the microphone cut out a little bit, but I think I heard. Can you just repeat the start of that?
Could you possibly share what's next on your map?
Yeah, sure. We are currently building out our social networking technology, as well as the Kindship wallet, which will be a NDIS plan management tool that will sit within the Kindship community ecosystem. I could talk about it all day, but essentially we're looking at how we can combine AI technology with the power of community to actually empower families to understand how they can navigate the NDIS and optimize the use of their child's funding. That's what our capital raise is for and where our focus is at the moment. But long term, we very much see ourselves as being the social layer for the NDIS in Australia.
Great. Thanks very much. I'm going to direct the next question to Molly and Mary. Your business models are quite similar in that it requires that community sort of sharing model. How do you see that changing the way social impact companies work and how that is, as a society, changing the way we think about commoditization and consumption and those sorts of things?
The great thing shared economy has brought, and all the gig economy, is yes, people are more open now to jump in an Uber or order Uber Eats. And I think just even with Airbnb showing how, as a community, you can really get together in terms of if there's any issues, problems, and really band together. And what we've found is through the communities that we've gone through and tested our product, how amazed they were that there is the solution right now to the problem they have been facing. And from there, the word of mouth that have grown to expand it in more and more, the power of the community has just been phenomenal.
Yeah, it's something that our team has talked about a lot, particularly coming out of COVID. It made it a real challenge to talk about sharing things. People like, I want my own thing. I don't want to touch something else that someone else has touched. But for us, it was just about the language that we use around sharing. We do it every day when we go into a cafe and we sit down and we have plates that go in the dishwasher, or when we're in a hotel and use their sheets and their towels. And it's just about making that notion of shared economy more normal. We do it with our gas bottles. Like, it's already such a big part of our lives, and I think we're going to have to just start getting more used to it. And you're so right, Molly, where we are seeing a shift with Uber and scooters and more public transport, but I think there is still a long way to go coming out of COVID in that conversation.
One more question from the floor.
Hi. By the way, just thank you all for sharing your stories. You were all amazing. I'm really inspired by all the work you're doing, so thank you very much for sharing with us. Sonia, specifically on your idea, perfect timing. I'm in the middle of renovating my house. So, by the way, I'm signing up to whatever beta tests you can do, but are you aware of the council offered assessments of houses that look at their sustainability? Because it was as part of that they told me how bad my house was. and gave me some recommendations, of which there's some dodginess in there. But they also told me the biggest problem in Victoria right now is things around solar panels being put on top of council houses, but without setting up the house to be able to use the power efficiently. So it's all leaking out. So are those what I'm seeing as a co-design opportunity for you? And is that a place that you've already got on your roadmap?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in general, I think it taps into multiple layers what we are considering. First of all, the council plays a vital role in our roadmap because it opens up doors to community engagement programs. And that's a great way actually to talk about sustainability in the housing sector in general and to educate and really get that message through. The other part is also the quality of not just the products and materials, but also the quality of installation of the professional work side of the workmanship. And that's a really systemic problem across multiple layers in the built environment. And while we are not here to solve everything at once, we do have a benchmark system. So when we onboard, for example, a supplier into our systems, but that will apply also to professionals, we do benchmark these companies and also the products, because that data feeds completely back into the logbook as well. And we want to assure that they actually comply not just on the quality level, but that they are also committed, for example, to circular services, cradle-to-cradle principles maybe. It depends of the nature of the product and the material choices, but it's a vital part of our system solution, and really to bring trust and transparency back into that sector. It is part of the roadmap. It was already workshopped in collaboration with our advisory board, and we have a great advisory board coming with a lot of knowledge from the built environment and circular economy. So I think we are well embedded to solve this.
Great. I think we're going to leave it there. I'm sure there's going to be lots of discussions when we break for nibbles and drinks. But look, I want to just say from a personal standpoint how honored I am to be standing and to be moderating this panel tonight. And this is really, when we talk about the ability to change the world, this is how you change the world. So thank you to all of you founders for the work that you're putting out and how important what you are doing is to change and to make our world a better place. So thank you. Again, I want to give a big shout out to the Spark Festival. It's a great place to get inspired and make these sorts of connections. Check out the full program at sparkfestival.com. On behalf of the Stone and Chalk Group, thank you very much for all of you for attending. Also, everyone that's dialed in from watch parties, no matter where you are across the country, to be part of this, we really appreciate that. We will be sending you a post-event survey because feedback is a gift. All of my staff and anyone that's worked with me knows that I say that about 4 times a day, but we really actually mean it because it does allow us to create better products and services and more meaningful things. While we're on the subject, the very next event that we're going to be doing is Cyber. Oz Cyber is part of the Stone and Chalk Group. It's an important part, and we talk about cybersecurity, and I know post the Optus experience, most of us are very well aware of it. But cybersecurity is something that we really need to start educating from children all the way up. It is a huge part of it. This will be full of phenomenal activities where we will be providing not only really good education on what it is for cybersecurity, but also helping founders with toolkits in meaningful ways that they can not just hear about the importance of cybersecurity, but actually make it real and meaningful inside their organizations. So it's an exciting week of activities. It's kicking off here in Melbourne on the 14th of November and running all the way through. So really looking forward to that opportunity and hope you join us for more of that. You can get more information on the screen. So again, thank you very much for coming out tonight.